Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Kenneth Price, and this is Sunday, November 6th. And this is our, we're keeping track of these things. This is our 50th Sunday morning Zoom call for the ministry I'm hosting, psychiatricsobriety.com. And as you can tell, I've been in a different location every time I do the Zoom call the last 2 months. This time I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. So, this is my 5-minute introduction. Psychiatric sobriety, who are we? What do we do? We do what needs to be done, folks. The people who come on board of this ministry have made the decision to relinquish their psych meds and benzodiazepines. The people who've come into this ministry had to realize the same thing that I did in my psychiatric parable, that tinkering with our brain chemistry is not the solution. It's what I'm trying to say, folks, is that there's a better way. And the purpose of this ministry is to anchor peer support, spiritual peer support, which is how I emerged from my psychiatric parable. I'm 55 years old, and I spent 25 years of my life inside of the mental health system, where the doctors and the psychiatrists, the good doctors, the benevolent psychiatrists who really believed in the chemical imbalance hypothesis, just kept prescribing medication after medication after medication. I believe in that hypothesis. And then eventually what happened, folks, I say this in the beginning of all my Zoom calls, the medications were actually creating the mental illnesses that they were trying to solve. It became a spider web. It became a choiceless choice. And that's the foundation of this ministry. People who come in here have found themselves in the same place. What I offer, twice a week, these Zoom calls are 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sundays and 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. I found solutions. I found a better way. And I found what this community is all talking about. They're talking about healing. It's the word that just keeps going around and around and around. I'm happy now. And so that's what I say at every introduction to every Zoom calls. I'm happy now, and everyone wants to be happy. So I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, and I'm not even a credentialed minister. So what I've labeled this Zoom call, I've labeled it peer support mentorship, because I may not be those three things, but I am a miracle. I emerged from something that I thought was hopeless. I emerged from something that was frightening unbeknownst, and I found an exit hatch, and this is what I extend and what I offer twice a week. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right, so I'm going to start off the Zoom call with the healer's prayer. It is a ministry, folks, but it's not a Christian ministry. It's not a religious ministry. However, in order to emerge from that nightmare, I had to anchor a spiritual solution. So when the people who come on this call have got spiritual paths that are different than mine, and I love that. I love that we can come in here and share what's working for us, as long as it's not fear-based. that's the only stipulation that I've got when I talk about spirituality. So I'm a Course in Miracles student, and we've got other people who come on board who are Course in Miracles students. So you need to know that about me. We're going to use a lot of metaphysical. I'll use a lot of metaphysical language, but if you want to shift gears and use your own language, I'll jump into. I want to meet you where you're at. Is basically what I'm saying. So that's my 4-minute introduction. It's going to be 5-minute when I get done with the healer's prayer. All right, so I've talked enough. I don't like to monopolize the conversation. I'm not here to teach or to preach. I'm here to walk with you guys through this, whatever needs to be done. So that being said, this is how we start every Zoom call. I say the healer's prayer, but we say it together. We are here only to be truly helpful, and we are here to represent him or her who sent us. Excuse me if I get a little bit emotional sometimes. We do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because he or she who sent us will direct us. We are content to be wherever he or she wishes, knowing that he or she goes there with us. And The most important part of the healer's prayer for this ministry is the last line, which goes, "We will be healed as we let him or her teach us how to heal." That's basically how I emerge, folks, is by following this real simple formula and extending this miracle to others. The more I extend it, the more I share it, the more it grows in me. That's why I go back to the 12-step model. That's what we did in the 12 steps. You know, it's having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to others and practice these principles in all of our affairs. It's a very simple solution. But that being said, I'm not presenting a new model. This is an ancient wisdom teachings. I'm just, offering it to people who are generally coming off psych meds and benzodiazepines, or people who want to exit the psychiatric model. Anyway, 5 minutes. I kept it within 5 minutes. Greg and Francois, how are you guys doing this morning? It's this morning here, Francois. Greg, I want to like to introduce you to Francois. He's from South Africa. Is that what you said? Do you want to unmute yourself and feel comfortable sharing?
South Africa.
South Africa. All right. If you feel comfortable sharing, I like to get to know new people. How did you find us, and what's going on, and how can we serve you this morning? Well, it's this morning or this afternoon anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'll go first. Yeah, I'm of course a miracle student, and that's mainly, and I was on antidepressants and painkillers before the course, and that was, and there was always this and then I obviously self-medicated in between, because obviously my meds stopped working back then, obviously, because there was still a belief in magic. And and that was another way that the course came in, is that exactly as you explained this in the introduction. That's the another way. It's like, and that's the, but it's not it's a tricky slope, because the undoing of the ego, I'm going to speak in some metaphysics, some metaphysical language. The undoing of the ego belief system can sometimes be a very intense ride, to put it least, to put it lightly. There's even now there's this fear of going back on it, because of, even as a course student, and I do see that it's not going to be the way. I tried that way, so I know it's not the way, but there's still that fear, of going back into that. It's that endless loop of just trying this side effects, and it didn't heal the guilt that was coming up. That was the biggest thing for me, is being a very deep guilt that they diagnosed me with OCD and all these diagnoses, and said, okay, and medicine seemed to work for maybe a couple of months, and then it was just basically full of side effects, and still getting just going into depression, actually, exactly as your story, same parable of just going deeper down the wrong rabbit hole. But even now I'm going through intense emotions and stuff. So it's there's this fear of, even I have the thought of going to a psychiatrist, but what happens in our model of plan, I think this is all over the world, is they usually don't put you on with a counselor or anything. They usually just put you on medicine, and then usually, because if you don't have it, we also use, I don't know if this is everywhere in America, but we also use an insurance system. So if you don't have the adequate insurance, they usually just put you on medication and off you go, kind of thing, because they can't really help you. And psychology, that's a controversial thing in itself, because but it's at least somewhere in here, then it's somewhere closer. I can say psychiatry it's beautiful in its way, but yeah, if you don't have the right coverage, yeah, you're not going to get help. I mean, if you need full-on psychiatry help, and yeah, that's something what I'm in conflict with, of seeing a psychiatrist and just being described. Obviously, it's my choice to use medication or whatever, but there's not going to be really that support of doing the guilt really in the mind. Yeah, thank you.
And I want to make sure I pronounce your name right, Francois.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Francois, that's perfect.
All right.
You can say Francois.
Francois. All right. It's hard. I don't have my glasses, so it's hard for me to read the name on the screen. All right. This is how the Course in Miracles works. It's no accident you came on this call. It's no accident we got connected. And I take notes. You know, when I host this call, I just take copious notes because there's so much good stuff that comes out. And in that you're a Course in Miracles student, I'm perfect. Because I can, you know, now use more Course in Miracles language than I normally do. You use the word magic, which is what Jesus refers to in the Course. That's the actual word that he uses in the Course in Miracles. He calls pharmaceuticals magic. What he says in the Course in Miracles is, and if someone doesn't read it carefully, they're going to say, "Oh, it's magic. You know, don't take your pharmaceuticals." That's not what he says. He says, if the fear level is too high, then magic has an appropriate place. And I'm so this is no accident that you use the word magic. No one's brought this up in all the Zoom calls that I've done. You know, and I've been doing these for over a year. That's the reason I don't want to judge psychiatry here, and that's the reason we don't go in that direction, because you described what I discovered. The medications were helpful at first.
Yeah,
I cannot disregard that the Prozac, the first time they gave me Prozac, it did do something to my brain chemistry and gave me relief. So, you know, I'm kind of walking a very fine line here, because I have to be very careful with my words, because I truly believe that magic has its place. But ultimately, if we are to continue on this path, it is our, and I think most psychiatrists would agree with me, it is our responsibility to find the better way. The medications helped me in many ways, probably kept me from committing suicide at many times in my life, because I was faced with trauma and I didn't have a container for it. It was too much for me as a young man. I'm 55 years old now, but as a young man, when I started this whole psychiatric parable, I didn't have a container for the trauma. And the mental health system, it sounds like in South Africa, it's not much better than the United States. It's a broken system here. Now I can't say that much. The mental health system here is broken. We all know that.
Yeah.
You know, the doctors, we're not here to talk about the broken system. So what Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, and this is very important for this call, you know, because most people who have been put on these medications are actually going through they're going through a spiritual emergency. If you stick completely with the allopathic model, they can just say it's mental illness. Here's some medication. I've never seen. I've not seen that. I've seen spiritual emergencies. I've seen trauma. I've seen many different things, but I'm still waiting for someone to show me a mental illness. I haven't found that yet. And like in my case, I mean, I'll come out and say, I mean, I had been abused as a little boy, and I had psychologically maladaptive behaviors that had their origin in the maladaptive behaviors that came as a result of the trauma. It's no fault, no blame, but I had to do deep trauma work in order to, and you know, the Course in Miracles is not, you know, opposite of the trauma work. You know, if you're a Course in Miracles student, you know, we can't, the Course in Miracles, yeah, I had deep trauma work that I probably wasn't ready for, you know, until much later in my life. So coming off the pills, you know, was a lot of work. And once all of the pills had been, you know, flushed out of my body, I was ready to do the deep trauma work, but I don't want to put any restrictions on it, because a person can also do that same trauma work while they're on the medications. It's just, the purpose of this ministry is if we stick completely with the allopathic model, we think it has completely to do with brain chemistry, and that's simply not true. The chemical imbalance hypothesis says, oh, you inherited bipolar from your father, you inherited ADHD from your father. Well, we're not going to go into the old model. We're here to anchor the new model. But I wrote down other words, you know, undoing the ego. Again, perfect that you're a Course in Miracles student, because basically the ego doesn't like a spiritual awakening. The ego and the spiritual awakening they're never, the twain shall meet. Actually, the ego will go after a person who's having a spiritual awakening. And I didn't know that when I was a young man. I didn't have access to the metaphysics. I didn't have access to the teachings. So I thought I was going crazy. I mean, deep in my heart of hearts, I knew that wasn't true, but my behavior was crazy. I've had other people on the Zoom call. There's an archive I have with a neat young woman. Her name is Gemma Rosenthal. Same story. Another one of our regulars. Her name is Beloved Grace. Same story. All of us were having spiritual awakenings. There was no container. We went crazy. The doctor put us on pills. And I can laugh about it now, but it's serious, because those pills, then they can't stop us. You can't stop a spiritual. You can't. You can take detours and cul-de-sacs, which is what I call my psychiatric parable: detours and cul-de-sacs. But once a person starts to wake up, it can't be stopped. And that's everything I'm hearing from you is,
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, it's. I mean, I think somewhere in the course it says sometimes when the mind is frightened, magic and miracles for healings. I don't know the direct quote, but yeah, sometimes helpful, magic and miracles combined. Yeah, and it did exactly. It is at one time in my life. It did. I think Jesus really. I'm going to use the word Jesus is high power, whatever. But yeah, it took me. I was very against medication. Was on it, and it was. So I thought it was like salvation. I thought, oh my gosh, I found the key. Yeah, because I didn't know anything about. Oh, my five senses is completely distorted, and there's completely other. This is not real life. So yeah, so this is what the course has brought me. And I have been in community as well. So I know it's being in function. I'm just gonna share, but yeah, function and stuff like that has been very helpful. It's been almost like it's exactly as the medication, an expression that's expressing. I don't know if you your background, but I think you also in the community and you did expression sessions, and that's the biggest thing for me is that's key for me, is almost taking like whatever, it's just expressing, because it's usually thoughts for me underneath the depression or whatever feelings. Yeah, so that's also where I joined it, because maybe even just expressing whatever is on the mind can sometimes be just as annex. It's actually the key. It's releasing the thoughts, yes, and seeing, and then giving them over, yeah, and then going underneath the beliefs. Sorry, I'm going very deep.
Do not apologize, and please continue to go deep. That's why this ministry I'm hosting is I'll just come out and say I'm not really popular. I've got a few regulars on board, but for the most part, it's because we go deep here. Because of the severity of my parable, I had to go very, very deep. And that's why, you know, I've been getting guidance to keep going with this ministry, to keep going deep, and to keep unwinding the real deep stuff. We can't do, if by the time someone's been prescribed psychiatric medications, they have to go deep. If they've started taking pills, it means there's a, you know, spirit saying, hello, I need to get your attention, hello. And what you're sharing, it needs to be archived. You're sharing with the Zoom call the formula we have to express, and we have to express where there's a loving container that can hold the truth of who we are. That's why, you know, it's essential that others witness, hold the space of who we truly are, while we purge the beliefs and the thoughts that are saying contrary to the truth. And we all got them. You know, we've all got them, and we're all, you know, by the way, you know, about 99% of the people on this planet are mentally ill. So I just say, you know, most of us ought to come out in hiding and just expose.
Yeah.
You know, mental illness, it's wonderful. You're using some of the same language. I wonder if we don't have the same teacher. My teacher is David Hoffmeister. He's a Course in Miracles teacher. And
yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, and Jenny. I know.
Yeah.
Jenny. Yeah.
And
yeah, she's.
He calls them private thoughts. Well, Jesus calls them private thoughts, and David Hoffmeister has built a whole community around no private thoughts, no people pleasing.
Yeah.
It was my private thoughts that made me mentally ill. My private thoughts are mental illness.
Yeah.
Does anybody hear that noise though? I'm sorry.
I can. So I don't know where it's coming from, because you're muted, Greg. So
it's not coming from me, because I have a.
You know, when I finally, you know, began to express in expression sessions, and some of my expressions were very raw. And let's see. Yeah, we are getting. I'm going to mute you while I speak, and then we can take turns being unmuted. There, Greg. I don't think the crew sounds there. There, you guys. All right, so I'll tell you what. We'll each one of us, as we share, we'll unmute ourselves. But I'll share with you a little bit about my parable. I found the Living Miracles community in May of 2017. And I was a little, I'd gotten off the Klonopin about 13 years prior, but it wasn't until January of 2016 that I finally got off my last psych med, because I was still taking, you know, psych meds periodically. So I finally, the last dose was January of 2016. And so I was struggling big time, you know, because I'd been on that stuff for 25 years. And I didn't want to look at it. If it was a withdrawal, I said, so be it. I'm not going into any psych med withdrawal support groups. I'm done with those. You know, I not to judge them, but I said, there's got to be a better way. And I walked away from my job. I walked away from my home, and I just said, I got to go on a vision quest. I got to find out the better way. I said the prayer. That's what Jesus said. That's what Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford said, you know, there's got to be a better way. So it's the only prayer that you know, we really need to start off with. And I was guided to meet David Hoffmeister in Duchesne, Utah in May of 2017. His community held a 30-day mystery school. And the expressions I had, buddy, they were raw. They were just, I had held in all these grievances for my whole life. believing that they had the power to harm others. And that was the message that I had received from my mother as a little boy. No disrespect to my mother, but she said, don't tell people that, you'll hurt them. You'll hurt them, as if other people are the cause and we're the effect. This is the paradigm that most of us grew up with. But one of the requirements for the Living Miracles community was no private thoughts. They said, if you're harboring something, you courageously need to expose it. It was a beautiful invitation and a very courageous invitation. And it was an invitation that it took practice to learn to expose it. I had so much hatred in my heart. I had so many grievances. I had so much, but what David knew was that under the grievances, under the hatred, it was just simply hurt. It's the message of this ministry is underneath all of my mental illnesses, there was that hurt little boy who was trapped at age 6. He was trapped in his room. He was afraid to come out. This is the deep trauma work that emerged myself, outside of the need for any more of those pills. As I began to do the trauma work, as I began to expose the private thoughts, as I began to let others love me, my mental illnesses went away. That's what Jesus says in the Course in Miracles. When it comes down to it, our only real fear is the fear of love. He's a master psychologist. I want to hear what you have to say. So I'm gonna go ahead and unmute you now, because this is a beautiful thing we're doing this morning, or this afternoon.
Yeah, pardon the noise. I mean, whatever. I think it's just that. Yeah, it's that's the main thing for me. It's getting at that private thoughts, and that's when I was in a spiritual community with Jenny, and I don't know if you know Jenny. She's one.
Yeah, I know
David.
Jenny.
Yeah, and I mean I do feel one day I don't know what plan is, but yeah, that's in the meantime I'm not in community. It's very important for me to keep on expressing. That's really the key for me, is just keep on whatever platform I'm finding now, even like this, just expressing. Yeah, and that's the key of really just letting it. Yeah, because usually it's depression is usually, that's what I found, is just thoughts. And I mean, depression is such an open term. When people you say you're clinically depressed, but it's the thoughts that's causing the depression. Because it's saying the thoughts are probably saying, what I've seen for myself, you're unworthy, all this, you have done wrong, you're guilty, you've messed up, you're this, that, your body, this, body image, all these thoughts. Yeah, that's where I really I'm really finding it now, after I've been in community open it up, and now I'm finding it's really, wow, okay, that's it. I found the answer, the process of release, and basically, yeah, every time and joining, that's also what I've seen. And that I'm still doing a joining on other with Jenny on their Zoom every morning, and we were just discussing this morning about joining and the power of and I've had actually a miracle recently where I had this is just a body effect, and I have some cause of physical pain in my ears, but yeah, I've just reached out and joined and really joined and expressed, and after I expressed, there was just deep peace. There was a feeling of going down under. That's expression, yeah. And after expression, it was like peace for a couple of hours, just a deep peace. So I immediately saw the contrast of, there's it. No private thought. You were just making it, yeah, saying it so beautifully. For no private thoughts. I just say thoughts, all thoughts. Yeah, yeah. and getting, and then it's for me, it's just getting at the beliefs, if this is the thought, usually that's a belief in rejection. The course, even as you would know, says everything should be questioned. Every belief, everything we think should be questioned. Yeah, and that's what I'm in the process of doing. But it can some days be intense, as you know, this inner work.
The intensity. Yeah, and this is why I keep using the word courage, because to go through it without the medication is the hero's journey. Again, I'm not here to judge psychiatry, and I don't know if you watch my Zoom calls. I got disclaimers all over the place because I'm like, this is such a touchy, topic. When mine reaches intensity, and remember, I'm doing this with, and you're right, this Zoom call is all about joining, because I do it with everyone. I'll mute you again. No, when I'll share with you, and I shared this yesterday in the Zoom call, because I feel it's very important that I expose completely here, on YouTube and on the Zoom calls for my own healing. Is, for example, I think it was yesterday morning I woke up, and all those thoughts. It's not like I healed from mental illness and rainbows and unicorns. That's a fairy tale. I maybe once in a while you get somebody like that, but mine's not. Mine's a daily practice. And yesterday morning, for some reason, I woke up and the ego was on hyperdrive. The ego was just screaming. The ego was just all those thoughts that you described. You're not good enough. You harmed other people. You will never be able to atone for all your sins. Just a whole bunch of my conditioning was what I shared with the Zoom call yesterday. Is here's what's different in my story. I knew that was the ego's voice, and I knew those thoughts weren't true. Now they were like a bullhorn in both of my ears. So it was, I'm not saying it wasn't painful, but I knew they weren't true. And I knew this too shall pass. So I just put my shoes on, and I took a long walk, and I just said, I can't stop this speeding freight train. So I'm just going to trust. I'm just going to be with spirit this morning and just trust. I wasn't able to meditate. I wasn't able to do any inquiry work. But I could trust. And one of the things the Course in Miracles, puts us, one of the things that it emphasizes is that nothing is going wrong. Nothing's going wrong. And so when I came back to the house, I simply took a nap and waited, trusted and waited, because I knew if all that was coming up in such a loud voice, the ego's voice, I trusted there had to be a message down there somewhere. I knew if nothing's going wrong, then something's going right. This is coming up for a reason, and if I can just courageously be with this long enough, there's going to be a message in here for me. It's sort of like there's going to be a holy grail in here. In my youth, when that would come up, I didn't have all these teachings. So I had to run for a Xanax. I had to run for a Klonopin. I had to grab a beer or something. Even some of the healthier exercise. Sometimes I used to be a marathon runner. If I can, get enough endorphins, and nothing. Marathons are great, but why am I doing it? This is how, I use the word emergence, but for all intents and purposes, this is just how I'm waking up. It's how I'm sharing it with others. And buddy, if you can find a container, and Jenny Donner's a great resource. If you can find a container to express some of the stuff that's just coming up, this can go a lot faster and a lot quicker. You're in a good place. I love meeting young people who are picking this up right away. I'm 55, so I don't know how old you are, but I can assume you're a lot younger than I am, but sometimes I look at the crystal ball. Oh, if I had had this when I was a young man, I say, stop it, just stop all that, But it's good to see you smile, because you can feel it. You can feel this works. Yeah. I'm going to unmute you. I keep muting because there's some that background. There you go. Now you can unmute yourself. There you go.
It's going faster, and that's also a big thought that comes up. If I found this earlier, I'm 29. If I only found this, that's also a depression thought. All the, and then the ego throws in all the physical side effects and all the journeys. It's all that. That's a big thing for me as well. It's also something I'm in the process of releasing. That everything happens on perfect timing. There's nothing. That's what the courses I'm finding now out for myself, is that the course is teaching nothing is going wrong. It's only the ego judgment that says something is going wrong. It's just knowing that it's exactly like this platform is beautiful, because I think this will grow and grow and grow, because I think that's what I feel for me, is that people are more and more asking that prayer, that prayer. There must be another way. Just feel that there's something very deeper, and it's probably gonna just increase the help lifeline, because people are really, that's also, and you were mentioning you walk a fine line. It's true. I can understand it, because if you don't have there's something bigger than five senses, or you have you connected with God, you don't have that background, so to speak. It's tough. Maybe 2 years ago I wouldn't, I would probably say this is blasphemy, but see, it's the perfect timing, and this is a metaphysics group in its own right, I do agree. It's just, it's something you mentioned about courage, and that's something that's sticking now in my mind, is just, and you saying the answer, that's the miracle, just waiting along. You mentioned you went for a walk. Sometimes I see for myself, if I just give myself a space, ask for help, and just wait for the miracle. Don't judge even whatever thoughts coming in and going, and then whatever ego thoughts, just wait it out. Basically, this too shall pass. This is all resonating. This too shall pass. Just feeling it, even if it's intense. That's what's been going on for me, is just intense guilt that's been coming up. And I do know this is part of the healing journey. And some days, I do feel like this is too much, and this is overwhelming. But then I know, then I can sometimes just go, no, just wait for the miracle. Then I just go into the prayer, and then just wait it out. Do whatever, just to wait it out. Go for a walk, as you mentioned. Whatever, be gentle with yourself. That's something I definitely learned from Jenny, is this process of being gentle with yourself, which the ego is not. It's completely opposite gentle thought system from the Holy Spirit or Jesus thought system. Completely opposite. It's very harsh. It's always you should be this, and you should be this, and why you experiencing these thoughts, and this guilt is wrong, and all these things. But something that you have really gotten through to me tonight is, this is really part of the journey. The courage the courage is in the stillness of being willing to go into asking for the miracle, waiting for the miracle to come in.
Well, it says somewhere in the Bible, I'm not a biblical scholar, but I can kind of, I know every time I talk and you're not muted, it bounces back. So that's where it's coming from. Okay, so here's what I find. It finally dawned on me what's going on. He says somewhere in the Bible, and he might even say it in the Course in Miracles, something like this: to those who much has been given, much will be asked. Now, if somebody is getting pulverized by the ego, it would stand to reason that they've been given a tremendous gift, and the ego does not want them to find it. I mean, you got to follow me on this. The people who are getting just pounded by the voice that's just trying to kill them, they must, since it's true, and I've seen it. It's there is nothing going wrong. It stands to reason that they're sitting on a chest of gold waiting to be discovered. Why else would the ego be going on a complete tirade rampage? And that's why everything, this is completely opposite of what, the allopathic model can't see the chest of gold, because the chest of gold is here. Chest of gold is connection to spirit. Psychiatry is not about that. Nothing wrong with psychiatry, but it doesn't believe that there's a connection to spirit. It's based on, generally atheism. It's not carte blanche, but we're and you're right, Francois, we're dealing here in the world of mysticism. This, in order to emerge, you have to be willing to entertain that the person is being pulverized, the person who believes they're mentally ill, is actually sitting on a pot of gold. One of my teachers is his name is Reverend Dale Blackford. He uses the parable of the man who was in a barn, and he was just shoveling through pony shit, shoveling through a pile of pony shit. People, walked into the barn, they go, "Why are you shoveling all this pony shit?" And the guy just turns around and looks at him and says, "It would stand to reason that it under all this pony shit, there's got to be a pony down here somewhere." This is what I discovered, and I discovered it the hard way by everyone told me, you're mentally ill, you're ADHD, and I finally just said, there's got to be something under here that I'm not seeing. And when I finally popped out the other side, I realized this is the same. This is not some unique truth for Kenneth. This is a universal truth, and this was kind of like a carte blanche across all these mental illness stories. Is that each person who was being pulverized by people say, they call them voices, and they call it schizophrenia. There was generally something under there that they were, I don't know what it's going to look like for each person, but that's why this excites me. I want to walk with the person until I want to be there when they discover it. It's like giving birth. Like I've used these same metaphors over and over and over. It's definitely like giving birth. If somebody did not tell a woman she was pregnant, and the contraction started after 9 months, she might think that she was seriously ill, or that she had a tumor growing in her uterus. There's a tumor in that's not a tumor, and you're not ill. You're about ready to give birth to something brand new, something beautiful. I don't know, you're so young, but Greg's younger than me too, but he might remember because he's not too much younger. There was a movie that was put out years ago. Thank you for doing this with us. Oh, thanks, Greg. It was called The Blue Lagoon with, I think, Christopher Atkins and Brooke Shields. It came out when I was 13, so it must have been about 1980. Famous movie, where these two young kids get stranded on a desert island. Two beautiful young kids, and they grew up together, and they went through puberty together, and they fell in love, and they discovered what sex was. So next thing you know, Brooke Shields gets pregnant, but no one explained to them where babies came from. He kept saying, "You're getting fat, you're getting fat." But then when 9 months later, when the labor pains started, I don't remember the exact scene, but she thought something was wrong. That's why it's a beautiful movie, because this is what all of us, no one's let us in on the secret that we're all giving birth to something brand new and beautiful. That's, you know, some people call it a reframing. I don't call it reframing. I just say this is the Holy Spirit's perspective. Ego says something's going wrong. Holy Spirit says something's going right. Ego says you're mentally ill. Holy Spirit says you're about ready to discover, you know, your superpowers. But it's not from an egoic sense. Superpowers are just when we get reconnected. Everyone's got superpowers. Just reconnection. The end of mental illness. It's because, you know, when we get reconnected, we then know what's real, and then everything else becomes unreal. And so we just reverse back out of it and unbelieve it. And this is why I love what you shared, Francois. You shared, you know, the thoughts. You shared at the level of the thoughts. You know, the purpose of expression sessions, when you expose them, then you can see these people in this room still love me anyway. These people in this room do not love me more than when I walked in the room. The people in this room do not love me less than when I walked in this room. And then we start to feel, oh my God, was any of that really true? People around the room, if you're, I don't know, I haven't been in one of Jenny's expression sessions for years, but generally people around the room, if they've, you know, been doing the Course in Miracles long enough, they say, no, none of it's real, but you had to get it out. We have to throw, it's like, you know, I've also done quite a bit of ayahuasca. You know, one of the things that happens in an ayahuasca ceremony is you throw up. No different from an expression session. You throw up. I mean, it's not that difficult, but what is difficult is that our cultural conditioning, you know, is we're in the time of the Great Awakening. And I mean, this could not have happened, you know, 10 or so. I mean, for us to look back, you're right, Francois. For us to look back and say this shouldn't have happened sooner. I mean, that's just more ego. It's all ego, basically, when you come down to it. But the reality is, like, I thought most of us could not have done this any time before now. I didn't have a container. Spirit said, it says in the Course in Miracles, each person it's a highly individualized curriculum. And I like to kind of, you know, put the Course in Miracles in you know, my own language. And basically, we don't wake up until it's been written in our script that we're supposed to wake up. These scripts that we're living, called our lives, are all pre-scripted. There's really nothing we can do to change the script. There's nothing we can do, which takes us back to what we have authorship over, is our perception of the script itself. You're going to view it from Spirit's perspective or ego's perspective. Something was going wrong, something went right. I mean, you know, when it gets down to it, this is just basically psychological reframing. Although the mind that created the problem cannot be the mind that creates the reframe. That's the difference between psychology and spirituality. Not the difference, but why we're one. If you try psychology without spirit, it won't work. The reframe has got to come from spirit. It's got to be. The reframe is the miracle, which is the shift in perception. It's the end. It was the end of my mental illness. And thank God I had so many mental illnesses, because then that's why I get to start this ministry. The purpose, I created all those mental illnesses so I could wait till I was in my 50s to start a ministry. That's mine. I want to get to Greg, because Greg, is that a no, Greg?
No, I'm just enjoying what y'all are talking about.
Greg, but the reason I want to get to you, Greg, is, do you remember when I was driving back? I don't know, when was it?
Are you in Cincinnati? Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
The reason I want to get to you is, do you remember when you called me? It must have been I was driving back from Washington, so that must have been about January or February.
That's
I was
about when we
driving through the
started.
gorge. I was on Bluetooth in my car.
Uh-huh.
And I've said this to you more than once.
Mm-hmm.
I've used you an example. I said, that is what an expression, that is the template for an expression. Remember that?
Are you talking about the time while I was screaming?
Yeah, that was so beautiful. I wish I could have recorded it.
It's a template. What is a template? My vocabulary is low.
it was beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
'Cause
Well, it
you
was
gave-
it was that giving birth you were talking about, you know.
Yeah, because Greg, you trusted me,
Yeah.
and I got to just, I know who you are. I've known who you are from the very beginning. I don't know how many years we've known each other.
Mhm,
I knew who you were,
mhm,
and to be present while you had the courage to vomit.
mhm,
It had to come out in the presence of a mighty companion. It had to.
mhm, mhm,
And I've watched your transformation, ever since then. It must have been earlier in the year.
yeah.
And all of us have watched your transformation. And you're not even a Course in Miracles student.
No, but I enjoyed hearing y'all talk about it. It makes
You enjoy
sense.
hearing all of us.
It makes sense. I mean, yeah. But go ahead.
A Course in Miracles it's not complicated. Well, it's just basic psychology.
Mhm,
Get honest, take a risk,
mhm.
and notice.
Yeah. It's kind of beautiful too. I mean, it's liberating, I guess you could say. It seems to be liberating. It's I don't know, I like it though. Um yeah. Yeah, I guess what could I say about me? Do you want me to say something about me or
It's an open forum. We got about a little less than 10 minutes, and so I
okay.
always want to give each person a chance to share. Watson kind of popped his head in and out, so I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I think I'm doing pretty good. So my naturopath, she thinks I'm doing good. And I see my homeopath. I get my remedies next week, my other remedies. So it should be an exciting, interesting week. But yeah, I don't know. I still have some fear, some of the symptoms, but things are healing. But let's see, spiritually, I don't know. Spiritually, well, this is very strange to me. When you start to see when you pray and you see um the direct influences that prayers have in your life, it can be almost unnerving. Like when I grew up, we were taught that the age of miracles was over. But I believe the age of miracles, I mean, life is a miracle. And just seeing that how it happens, I don't know. I'm constantly kind of thrown off by how spiritual life is when you get off these meds. How intensely, I mean, I was talking to the naturopath and she says, our bodies are spiritual things, and that, when we get our physical health back, our spiritual health grows too. I'm just kind of thrown off all the time about how, I don't know, synchronicity, how everything's happened perfectly and had, as you put it, nothing has gone wrong. That just blows my mind from time to time. So, yeah.
Greg, did I hear you correctly? Because I've been wanting to say this in many Zoom calls, but I was waiting for someone to bring it up. Did I hear from you that these meds have disconnected us?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's what you heard. Yes, yes.
I needed someone, because I can't come out and say it because I'm being censored.
Yeah. No, you're
But-
right. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's
Let them censor you. Let them go after you instead of me. You're gonna get a call from Big Brother. The minute the men in black are gonna come to your door. Knock, 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 knock. No, but I'm kind of trying to make light of it, but no, it's true. It was my discovery. I have to keep an eye for them to keep myself out of trouble. But it was my discovery that the meds, I didn't know they were doing that to me. I didn't know they were disconnecting me. I didn't know, because I had been on them so long that I
Yeah.
didn't have a reference. I never had a reference point for mental health to start off with.
Right,
I mean,
right.
they put me on that stuff when I was I was crazy. I was 20 years old and I was batshit crazy. They put me on that for a reason. I was nuts. I didn't know what sanity was. It wasn't until my early 50s when I had the white light episode from the medicine that I said, oh my God, is this what's truer than all that? Spirit said, yeah, I'm afraid so, kiddo.
No,
There's your contrast experience right there.
no.
Those meds.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Well, those meds, you know, I've said this on all my Zoom calls, you know, I was truly guided, you know, and I had angelic intervention the whole way that kept me from jumping off a bridge, you know, because I was so far down in that hole for so long, depressed. Like Francois was saying, they were my thoughts, but those thoughts had gone unaddressed for so long that they had actually metastasized into a black ball of energy that I pushed down. Trying to hold a beach ball underwater. This metastasized, you know, it was a psychological cancer. It was a spiritual cancer in my story. And I don't know, Francois, if you've seen any of my videos, the expression sessions are essential. Because of my history, I had to actually go for the big guns. You know, I had to go for the ayahuasca and the other medicines too. Because
that's what I thought about you too. That you needed something very extreme. I mean,
I did.
Where you were,
I was a low bottom.
You were what?
They call in the 12 steps. They call my case a low bottom.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is there's no accident. The further one goes down, the further one goes up in this dimension of polarity.
Yeah.
And since we're all in this dimension of polarity, spirit will use anything the ego made. Nothing's gone wrong, something's gone right.
Yeah.
And it's you know what, if it's true for me, that's true for you too, Greg. If you think for a moment that something has gone wrong in your story, please call me and say, hi, it's Greg. I think something's going wrong. Nope. I'll remind you.
Yeah.
I don't have time to take a lot of people's calls anymore, but if you just want to call and just remind, and that's what I do. And
I'm usually good now, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, you got, I know you got Jody, so I know you're under care. You guys, we're coming on an hour, and I like to only keep these recordings open for an hour. But this has been fantastic, Francois. I could not thank you enough for coming on board.
Yes.
And sharing
Keep doing this, Francois, please.
With this YouTube channel. I don't know if you know about this ministry. I've only started it a year ago. It's clunky, it's unprofessional, but I can't not be doing this. I'm guided to do this. So when I get people on board that come and share what you did, you have extended to so many others. I'm saying thank you on behalf of many right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
I can't hear you. Can like to show. Do we need to ask you to unmute? Let's see. Ask to unmute. There you go. There you go.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Are you gonna come back next week or not? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I was just wondering if are you going to keep coming or not? Depends.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing for me is just keep on joining. Yeah, and that's maybe my last line, and I was just want to share is that, that what you were sharing about disconnecting, medication disconnecting, and usually before we go to I know, but we join with our brothers. That's the course would say language, and that's the biggest thing. Even in AA, whatever spiritual path, it's usually entails people, other people, and joining. That's the biggest thing. So
good.
I'm gonna pray about it.
Yeah. And how old are you? Are you in your 20s?
Yes, I'm 29.
That's what I thought you said. Okay. Yeah. You're young. It's like Kenneth says, you're kind of young getting all this. It's It's good to hear, you know.
We're all
always
farts, Greg. We're old farts.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Okay, perfect. Francois, yeah, I'd love to have you back because actually, I really, I'm going to ask you to come back, and I'll tell you why. There are other people on board who need the more you can keep sharing it with this community that I'm creating or we've created here. We need because you've got a testimony already. You're only 29, and well, I mean, you guys are getting affected, and we did in our generation, but no, we need you on board. So I'm asking you, please come back. Greg's always coming back, so I never worry he's not going to come back. All right, this is Kenneth Price on Sunday, November 6th, and this is our 50th Sunday morning Zoom call for psychiatricsobriety.com. Couldn't be more thrilled. This is, folks, this whole ministry is a miracle. Mm-hmm. First, I popped out of my dark night of the soul, mm-hmm. and all of a sudden, all these beautiful, I'm sorry, these are butterflies. Greg is a butterfly. Francois is a butterfly. Because what came out, people think it's linear. It's not linear. You don't go from caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly. That's still that linear model approach. No, we're all butterflies, all of us. It's butterflies is that holy grail, that pot of gold. And so we've just got to take the steps to walk through the cocoon is not complicated. Jesus says in the Course in Miracles, there's 6 steps to awakening, and 4 of them are dark, which just simply means, those 4 dark stages, it's just a cocoon, but the cocoon's not real. But until you allow the cocoon and face it and express it and expose it and release it and turn it over, then blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. All right, so Sunday, November 6th, if you're watching this on YouTube, please leave your comments below, okay? And if you're watching this on YouTube, please join us. I stopped asking for donations a long time ago because I found work, and so I
okay,
had made it a mind to pay for the website, etc. But I am asking for a contribution. I'm asking if this ministry rings true for you. If you hear something, please join these Zoom calls. These Zoom calls keep going because of the participation. So we do these Zoom calls. There's a 9 a.m. Pacific time on Sunday, which is this one, and there's a 5 p.m. Pacific time on Wednesday. So I am asking for contributions along the lines of participation. So if you're watching us on YouTube, please, you can leave your comments. That's helpful, but even more helpful is if you just join us at those 2 time slots. All right. That's it for this morning's YouTube archive. God bless, and may the force be with you, and see you on Wednesday. Bye.